Have you ever had a friend tell you about their relationship issues and it seemed so clear what the issue was? You could see that both people needed to work on stuff, and you could see that maybe that relationship was not meant to be. Isn't it interesting how we can see other people's relationships clearly instead of our own? Tune into this video and find out what you need to know to figure out about your relationship. And is it them or is it you? Glad to be back, friends, and today I'm going to be discussing relationships, but more specifically, is it them or is it me? You know, oftentimes when we find ourselves in toxic relationships that aren't working, we have a tendency of wondering what's wrong, what can be changed, what can we do to change the situation? And we often look at our partner first and find the faults within them. Because it's a lot easier looking at somebody else in our relationship and seeing the problems that they have versus maybe some of the situations and problems that we're dealing with. And so in today's video, I'm going to really explore relationship difficulties, why we stay in these toxic relationships, what we don't realize, but the things that we need to overcome. So let's go. What I found is that we actually look to define the problem with the other person instead of looking within us to determine, well, how we got here and why we're actually accepting this in our life. And I think these are very important things to think about, because how we got into this relationship and why we keep accepting this are very important, because it says a lot about where we are mentally, physically, emotionally, where we came from, our upbringing, and many other things that I'm going to talk about. So why do we do it? Why do we stay in these toxic relationships? Why do we do it? Okay, the first reason we do it, I think, is based on insecurity. The desire to not want to be alone. Many of us are insecure in the fact that we don't want to live our life by ourselves. We don't want to be alone. We're even scared or fearful to be alone. And that actually puts us in a position of, well, beggars can't be choosers kind of thing, right? Yes, they have their faults. Maybe I'm not that happy, but maybe they'll get better. Maybe they're going to change. That might remind you of somebody, maybe yourself, friend, or family member. Another reason we stay in this relationship is because we're codependent. Okay, codependency is one of the big things that keeps us in relationships that really aren't working. Okay, to me, a toxic relationship is two people together that don't need to be together. And they're together because of the fear of the unknown, fear of being alone. A lot of the reasons why we have codependency is based on our childhood, okay, the way we were raised. And I've talked about this in previous videos, and why I talk about it often is because it's true. Okay, the way we were raised dictates a lot of how we act and what we think is normal and what we're willing to live with. And those things don't change until we actually, physically, mentally, and emotionally change our old perspective and align with a new value system. And the fact that maybe we were raised by someone who was a narcissist and we were used to being around that. Very unhealthy, but very normal. You see, and until we realize that the narcissistic attitude and that type of personality is not good for us, and we move away from that type of relationship, until we understand why and until we understand our value, we can't let go of that codependency with the narcissist. Just an example. Okay, so let's go deeper into why we do this. Why do we stay in this relationship? We stay in this relationship because we're accustomed to finding the problems and finding solutions. We actually believe that when we find problems in someone else, if we just pick it apart enough, if we just read enough self-help books, we'll figure it out. And then we'll come up with a solution and we'll have this great life and everything's going to be perfect and life is going to be awesome. And we're used to being this way because we've had to deal with this growing up as well. Another reason why we stay in the relationship is it's easier to see problems in other people. We see the problems in the other person, but we really don't see the problems in ourselves. Okay? Very important. And it's easier to look at them instead of looking at ourselves. A good example is when you have a friend go to lunch with you or dinner and they're talking about their life and you can see the issues quite clearly. You can see what they need to do. You can see the forest through the trees, and it seems really easy. But when it comes to your own life, what? It's difficult. It's too close. And that's why we end up looking at the other person in the relationship and finding all the faults with them instead of looking back at ourselves and realizing that we're in this relationship to figure something out. Perhaps the person is mirroring me in just a little bit. And if they're not mirroring me and it's really highly toxic, am I staying in this just because of the fear and insecurity? Just because of the codependency? Why am I staying in the relationship? So let's go into the fact of what we really don't realize, because this is very important. In these relationships, there are things that we don't realize and things that we definitely need to be aware of. The first thing is that, like I was saying earlier, they are not the problem. Really, even if it is a toxic relationship, it isn't about necessarily making the relationship work. It's about identifying the issue and realizing, how did I get here? Why did I choose this? Is there something from my past, like my mother or father, that actually made this relationship look quite normal? Am I insecure with myself and don't want to be alone because I don't know myself well enough? And so being able to realize that the solution most of the time is not staying together and making it work. It's about figuring out that it's time for you to probably let this relationship go and to part ways. Another thing that we might not be aware of is that we were not put on this planet to fix the other person, okay? We weren't like put on this planet to fix them. We were put on this planet to fix ourselves, okay? And oftentimes these relationships, well, they're always learning tools, okay? They're always tools that we can use to learn about ourselves. We don't have to stay in hell. We can walk through hell briskly and get to the other side. It's about understanding what we need to fix about ourselves. And last but not least, people do not change unless they want to or unless they have to. So you wanting somebody to change isn't going to make them change. The only person that can change and that you have the power to change is yourself. So you have the power to change to either be codependent in the relationship and just be in the relationship and let them walk all over you, or you can challenge yourself and decide, am I ready to find who I am? Am I ready to make the internal changes and to do the real homework to really figure out who I am, to let go of my past baggage, and to eventually find someone that unconditionally loves me only after I figured out how I can actually unconditionally love myself. Now it's the time to think about things to overcome. The first thing that you want to be able to overcome is fighting to stay together even though the relationship is not healthy, okay? And why do we do that? Well, out of codependency, but also some of it is sheer ego. The ego that this is going to work. I'm not going to let this relationship die. I am in charge here. I am not going to have another failed relationship. But the thing is that if you look back at the past relationships before that, doesn't it seem similar? When we don't deal with our own personal baggage, we bring it into every single relationship we have. Now, the other person might have Louis Vuitton trunks of baggage, okay? It's not about who has more baggage than the other person. But the fact is that if we're not healthy going into a relationship, 100% healthy, and the other person isn't, unless we're willing to do a lot of therapy work together and really get to the core of our issues, and even then we're going to stay together. Otherwise, we really have to step back and ask ourselves, why am I fighting for this relationship when I haven't really even fought for myself? Another thing that we need to overcome, and this is in every single relationship bar none, is that we have to stop being codependent. And this is huge. This is a really big deal. And the reason why it's so hard for many of us is that we learned it at such a young age. Okay? At a young age, dealing with upbringing and parenting and being a child, we learn this. We learn this from watching our mom and dad. We learned it. And so we have to sit back and peel back that onion of codependency and realize what's involved in that. One of the first things is, I don't even know me. I don't even understand what makes me tick. I don't even have unconditional love for myself. I'm just trying to figure it out, and then I'm trying to figure it out with somebody else. And then we also have all this baggage together, and they have all this baggage, and then I'm codependent with whatever they're doing, and I'm not even learning about myself, and so I put myself on the back burner for a relationship that most people consider as toxic. Another thing to think about, this relationship, even though perhaps toxic, is a positive stepping stone to reevaluate your life and to understand who you are. I'm going to say that one more time. Even though this relationship might be defined as toxic, it's a positive stepping stone to reevaluating your life and understanding yourself clearly. Okay? Sometimes it takes this type of lesson And these lessons are the ones that are best learned. Okay? And when we're able to step back and say, it's not that person's fault, they're not evil. Okay? They're not evil. They're not the evil one. I'm not the evil one. When we can step back and realize it's just not going to work. But it's not going to work because it's not just them, it's both of us. We both have things that we have to work on. Maybe it seems that one person has more things to work on than you do, but is this keeping score, or are we just trying to get healthy? And I think sometimes we have to back it up and say, you know what? I care about this person. It's not working. I love them at the core. And in order to really show them that I care, I've got to let them go. Let them find what they're looking for. And maybe they'll go in and find what they're looking for when there's not someone else to be codependent with. I hope this content has helped you. I hope that it's opened your mind to a relationship that you're dealing with right now. Perhaps it's opened your mind in a way that you never thought. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do. And please share the video with anybody that you feel needs this content. But let me ask you a question. What did you learn from your last relationship, whether it was toxic or unhealthy? And have you really worked on overcoming that baggage and understanding yourself before going into your next relationship? Let's start the conversation. In the meantime, don't forget to live your true life.